राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रिज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रिज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रिज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रिज जन रंजन यमुना तीर बनवारी। यमुना तीर बनवारी जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी। जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। 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 जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी। जय गोपी जन बल्लभ जय गिरिवर धारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय कुंज बिहारी जय कुंज बिहारी। Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama Rama Rama
Jai Radha Madhav Jai Kunj Bihari Jai Radha Madhav Jai Kunj Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Ballava Jai Gopi Jana Ballava Jai Girivar Dhari Jai Gopi Jana Ballava Jai Gopi Jana Ballava Jai Girivar Dhari Jai
Shanti, Shanti. Welcome to Satsang. What role does spirituality play in physical health and mental health? So it's an interesting question because it obviously plays a very important role, and I'll share about that role. But what makes the question so interesting is spirituality is the core of who we are. The truth of who we are. Spirituality shows us the truth of who we are. But tragically, for most of us, we don't even realize that that's actually what we're here for. And so you end up having to sell spirituality the way that you would sell anything, like, oh, well, you live longer and you're healthier and here's what it gives you. As though somehow experiencing the truth of who you are isn't in and of itself the greatest benefit. As though being able to walk a path that actually gives you and shows you that which you are, that weren't enough. That we have to also know, well, what other benefits? Is it really worth the time? If I've got 30 free minutes a day, do I meditate or do I do push-ups? Like which is gonna give me more benefit? Do I meditate? Do I do push-ups? Do I study the stocks? We weigh the pros and the cons of things. And this is what's so interesting these days, is that spirituality has to be packaged and sold as that which has the greatest benefit for you. And luckily, of course, it does, so we can do that. But it's always just interesting for me when that aspect reemerges, because you would think it would be enough to say, this is why you're here. This is the truth of who you are. This is how to know it. That even if it went in the other direction, even if not only did it not help your health, but if it actually made you sicker physically, that people would still do it because they would understand it was more important to know why we're here and to touch that and live that and experience that, rather than to live lots and lots of extra years, but in ignorance and illusion. But we're not there, and that's okay. It's just always interesting to remember that we're living mostly in a world where it's all about benefit. And that's okay. So on that level, we know that spirituality is actually very, very good for our health and our mental health. On a physical level, fortunately, this is actually what I did a lot of the research for my PhD dissertation on. So I actually have all of these facts. But we have incredible stories and statistics. For example, Duke University, a very prestigious university in America, did this longitudinal study for, I can't remember if it was 10 years or 20 years, but a long, long study, where they measured every aspect of people's lives. Dietary habits, drinking, drugs, exercise, workplace, families, all of the different variables they could. They measured them all. And at the end of this study, and they were looking at lots of aspects of people's lives. It was a very broad study. But there was one piece of the result that was very interesting, which was that at the end of this study they found that people who regularly attended a place of worship, a temple, a church, a synagogue, a gurdwara, a mosque, one outside their home, one inside their home, the tree in their backyard that was holy to them, whatever it was, but regularly attended a place of worship, were 25% less likely to die of any cause during the 10 or 20 years of the study. Now, it wasn't enough to just be a member, so you couldn't pay your membership dues but not go. That didn't help. And then they thought, well, maybe it's social cohesion. It's having a social network. But people who belonged to tennis clubs or book clubs or all of these other social networks didn't have such a strong inoculation. Now, by the time I was doing my dissertation and reading these studies, they didn't have an answer. They didn't know why. We knew what it wasn't. I mean, we knew that it wasn't that the prasad given out in the mandirs is somehow, pure, more organic. I mean, usually it's oily, greasy halva, I mean, it's sugar and ghee and what. So it's not that the food is healthier. It's not that somehow the air is cleaner. It's not that we're running medical camps or vaccination drives or something along with our Sunday services. So there was actually no answer that the researchers had. But from a spiritual perspective, I love it. And what I ended up doing much of my dissertation on had to do with the very real physical and emotional health benefits to us of a spiritual practice. And so we have that research. Dartmouth University did a great study where people were coming in right after having their first heart attack. And on the intake form, in addition to all of the other info, they asked one extra question, which was, how religious are you? And there were three options: not religious at all, somewhat, or very religious. And after 6 months, they found that those who had checked not religious at all, forget all the statistics now, I think it was something like 11% or 13% of the people had had a second fatal heart attack within 6 months. Now it turns out that's standard, that within 6 months of the first heart attack, a large percentage of people have a second fatal heart attack. of those who had checked very religious, guess what the rate of second fatal heart attack was? 0. So we've got all these statistics, and they're fun. And we know it for mental health, of course. We don't need nearly as many studies to prove that to us because a lot of us experience that in our lives. Just look at yourself. Measure how you feel on your anxiety scale, on your mood scale, on your coping skills scale. Come up with whatever scales you want. It's your life, doesn't matter, make them up. Whatever your scales are, how are you pre-meditation and how are you post-meditation? So we don't actually need science to give us all of those statistics, although we have them, because we know what we feel like after yoga class. We know what we feel like after meditating. We know what we feel like after the arati, after satsang, after all of our spiritual experiences. We know the difference. We experience it every day. So, coming back to the question, yes, that's the impact of spirituality on your health. It improves it significantly. And that shouldn't matter. That's a bonus. Even if those statistics were not there. Even if it turned out it went the other way, people who meditate are more likely to catch colds. We should still meditate. The fact that it goes the other way, again, is a bonus. But even if the science said people who meditate are more likely to get colds, we should still do it because that's what we're here for. And if it means that we move through the world with a runny nose, so be it. When our values are in order, if given a choice between no runny nose and illusion and ignorance, or awakening, enlightenment, but runny nose, there shouldn't even be a question here. And so the fact that it does actually also improve our health, bonus, great. But don't be looking for all those extra bonuses. You know, lots of research is coming out these days. They're doing all kinds of brain studies and people who meditate, how their prefrontal cortex is actually thicker, more connections. Well, the prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain that does the highest level planning. Our brains basically have evolved from the ground, the bottom, up and around. And so brain stem here is that which we share with all of our earliest ancestors. As you move up through the brain, you get to stuff that's more specific to humans. The prefrontal cortex, which is literally right here, is the last to evolve. It's the highest level of brain evolution. Well, we now know that people who meditate actually literally, physically thicken their prefrontal cortex. Means they are growing new neural connections. Yeah, neuroplasticity, exactly. We're getting more connections. So that's extraordinary. Better planners, better visioners, better big pictures, better innovators, better entrepreneurs. And it shouldn't matter. That's a bonus. Because we should keep coming back to that, awakened runny nose illusion perfect health. Well, what are we here for? Right? So yes, it does have benefits, but let's try to stay focused on the core benefit, which is it is the way, it is the only way to actually discover and experience and live what you are here for. But if along the way you need to get in because the idea of having a thicker prefrontal cortex sounds cool, and so you're now finally interested in meditating, okay, so be it. I'm okay with that. Because the power of meditation is so strong itself that regardless of why you get into it, people ask me sometimes in our yoga classes or our international yoga festival, people will say, well, does it bother you that sometimes people get into yoga just for the fitness? And I always say, I've got such a faith in yoga that it doesn't matter to me why they get involved. If you need the impetus of a slimmer waist to get you into a yoga class, okay. Because the power of yoga is such that regardless of what brought you into that class, you're going to be touched. And you're going to be impacted. And you're going to experience something much, much deeper. And if you end up with a slimmer waist, so be it. And if you don't, so be it. Because by the time you realize, oh, actually, this doesn't work so well to slim down my waist, you've already experienced the other benefits so much that that's no longer what you're worried about. So if you need the idea of a more robust immune system to start meditating, fine, take it. Yes, gives you a more robust immune system. If you need the idea of it helping your mental state to start meditating, great, do it. Yes, it helps your mental state. But then allow the power of meditation to actually show you what it's really about, which has nothing to do with the workings of your immune system or the coping skills you have in the universe. Those are they're symptoms. They're reflections of a system in alignment. But they're not actually the goal. But they're nice bonuses. Before taking any of our other questions from in advance, I'm happy to open it up if anyone here has a question. Yes.
From our childhood, we were introduced to Indian mythology.
Okay.
Many stories, many related other stories. And even the artis, what we sing every day, it ends with the इस आरती को गाने से आपकी मनोकामनाएं पूर्ण होंगी. Now, as a child, okay, whatever I imbibed, it's okay. Now I'm mature and I understand after attending all these spirits. It's very difficult to bring the mind to the meditation out of all this mythology and illusion. So how to reach to meditation?
So, first of all, I don't really like the word mythology. It takes truth and undermines it. So, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a child, and your child keeps trying to stick his fingers in the electrical socket. Okay? And you say, don't. you're going to get electrocuted. But the kid keeps doing it. And then one day you say, "Ao beta." You sit your son or daughter down on your lap and you tell them the story of when a young girl or boy, just their age, also thought it would be really exciting to stick their finger in the socket, and how they got electrocuted, and how their family was so sad to lose the child, and their friends were so sad, right? Now, is that a myth? What is that?
It's a story, it's a mess, it's the way to convince the child these are the consequences.
Exactly. It's a teaching. It's a teaching. Has a young child ever stuck their fingers in a socket and been electrocuted? Of course. Did you happen to know the child? Did it work out exactly that way? No. But is that even relevant to the story? No. When we say mythology, when we say, we're raised with all of this spiritual mythology, it absolutely, in one fell swoop, just removes any of the depth, any of the legitimacy, any of the power or the truth of these stories. As though somehow they were as though it might as well just be the Iliad and the Odyssey. That they're just sort of a figment of a brilliant author's imagination. But they're not. There's truth in them. There's factual truth. Did it all happen exactly the way that every person who has written it down says? Probably not. In fact, it's not even possible because there's so many different interpretations and versions that they cannot all possibly have been exactly the right way. But there are threads of truth that run through it all. There are pieces we actually even now know historically. We're able to point historically, this is where that happened. There's all kinds of now, whether it's archaeological research. About 15 years ago or so, there were all these images from NASA of the bridge from India to what we now call Sri Lanka, but at the time was called Lanka, under the ocean. So up until NASA gave images showing a bridge under the ocean, the Ramayana was just a myth. Now, suddenly, miraculously, out of the blue, we have a totally inexplicable bridge that seems to exist under the ocean, exactly where the Ramayana said it would be, dated back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. As archaeology, as science, as different ways come in, we're going to find more and more, that. Now that doesn't mean that every individual drama happened exactly like that. Did Draupadi and Arjun really have that fight? Probably not. But does that mean that it was a myth? No. And that's important because as we get educated and we become sophisticated and we consider ourselves modern and sophisticated, it's very easy to just turn our back on all of that as though it were myth. And we are now sophisticated enough not to believe it. But in that are teachings and truths that are actually of essential value. So that's the first important part, is just because you were brought up with it doesn't mean it's not true. It's very, very alluring to be more sophisticated than that which I was brought up with. My parents, my grandparents, who still believed that stuff, they were kind of backwards. But I I've studied abroad. I've learned this. I know that that's only, and that's a mistake. That's a big mistake. Because there's a wisdom in the ancient truths that, yeah, you don't have to get wrapped up in the drama of different pieces. But the truth, the messages, the don't stick your finger in the light socket piece of it, that's true. And that's for you. So that's the first part. And then when you say, how to get the mind out of these things and into meditation, well, I'd say allow these teachings, these stories, actually to be there in your mind. Because the message of every one of them is connect with God, have faith in God, meditate. And so regardless of which particular story it is that's floating in your mind, which particular divine incarnation it is, allow that to be there if it's there. And then take the teaching of that story, which is go within. Find that truth within. Find that path within. There's a reason that all of these stories have the divine incarnation, the hero of the story, always going through great suffering and troubles. Because it shows us the way how in our lives, if our stories of God were just born with a silver spoon or a gold spoon in his mouth and everything was perfect and everybody knew he was God from the time he was born and everybody loved him and everybody bowed at his feet and nobody was ever jealous, nobody ever was competitive, there were never any problems, it wouldn't be much of a message for our lives because we'd be like, well, okay, I guess it works for God, but that's not how my life has been. But when we're going through troubles and we feel like I can't be connected to God, I can't have integrity, I can't follow my Dharma right now, I can't live in that truth. Well, these stories show us, oh wait, look at what they went through. Look at what they had to go through. And the stories are so extreme that what most of us go through pales in comparison. Have a fight with your family members. Well, did you have an uncle who tried to kill you? Right? Don't get along so well in the home? Well, did your stepmother get you exiled from the 14 years? That bad? And so it's so extreme that even if what we are suffering from is close to that, you could say, yeah, well, not exactly that, not quite that much. But it's bad. No matter how bad it is, it's almost never as bad as what they go through in the stories, which forces all of us into that situation of, okay, well, so that means the teachings are for you. Because otherwise, we feel, well, yeah, that's a teaching for people for whom it's all going right for. Easy to say when everything goes right, But you don't know what I've been through. You don't know the story of my life. But when the story is even worse than you've been through, and the teaching is there, there's no place to doubt this is for you. So let that be in your mind. If that's the backdrop against which your meditation begins, wonderful. But just as you don't let your mind get distracted by the little nitty-gritty drama stories of your day-to-day life, in the same way you don't want your mind to become a TV, the reenactment of every act of the story, because you want to be meditating. So just keep bringing it back. Just keep bringing it back. And you'll get there. Yeah. But I think valuing the teachings of the Dharma is actually going to make meditating easier for you. Because it'll bring a cohesiveness within you. Who I am, how I was raised, my culture, my dharma, my family, my beliefs, my actions, that will bring them more into alignment. Than if you're dismissive of this and dismissive of that and dismissive of this, but still trying to bring the mind into meditation. Wonderful. Yes.
How do you talk to people about spirituality who don't believe in spirituality? Because I find that most of the time people try to sell spirituality and its benefits because that's the only way to convince or open people up who don't believe in it. Because if we tell them it's about yoga's about spirituality, then they say no thanks, I don't believe in spirituality.
Yeah. So it's a great question, because we can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. And so it's very difficult, as you say, if somebody doesn't believe in spirituality, how do we talk to them about that? Because we who have found spirituality feel like I have found the answer. This is what it's about. We know that is true. And then you see people suffering. You see people living in illusion. You see people focused only on the external. And within you wants to help them, to share, to talk to them about it. And this is where I said it's not a problem to share the benefits of it, because they're true. And so it's not like you're false advertising, because we do have all of the statistics. We do have all of the information to show, yes, it's good for your physical health, it's good for your mental health. Yes, it, in most cases that have been studied, grows your prefrontal cortex. Yes, it does all of these things. And if that's what somebody needs to get in, if they need to know that doing yoga is going to lower their blood pressure to get in, that's okay. People don't have to be already sold on the full package to get their foot in the door. Especially spirituality, because a lot of people have had a lot of weird relationships with religion and God in their lives. And it brings up a lot for people. So if you are expecting people to buy the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker from the beginning, the dilemma is that it actually alienates people who have an issue with religion and God. And so it's okay to allow them to just get their toes in. Oh, this is actually maybe going to help with your blood pressure. Maybe this will help you concentrate. Maybe this will help you focus. You're looking for something to help you concentrate and focus. Maybe this will help. You're looking for something to still your mind. This will help. You don't have to make it about God yet or about religion yet. If you know or you suspect that there's someone who has that's holding them back, it's okay. Talk to them instead about the other benefits. They're going to experience God automatically. You know, if an 8-year-old boy or girl comes home from school, but let's just take boy for this case. An 8-year-old boy comes home from school and he says to you, his big brother, his dad, his uncle, his babysitter, whatever your relationship may be with him, he says, girls have the cooties. I hate girls. I'm never going to get married. Okay? Now, you've got a couple of options. Option 1 is you can try to convince him that girls don't have the cooties. Chances are it's not going to work. You'll say, no, really, girls are nice. I'll say, no, blech, I'm telling you, they've got the cooties. I know it. I'm never getting married. Girls are gross. And you realize very, very quickly that you're not going to be able to convince him with words. But you also know that there's a very, very, very good chance that give him 6, 7, 8 years, 9 years, he's going to develop his first crush. He's going to fall in love. He's going to know they don't have cooties. He's going to have thoughts about getting married or cohabitating or whatever. But he's no longer going to need to be convinced that they don't have cooties because he's going to have that experience automatically. And all you need to do is hold the container, hold the space for him to grow and expand into his own experiences, which life will give him. And the same is true with a lot of people spiritually. If people believe in their mind, they've got an issue with God, an issue with religion, an issue with spirituality. It's not for me. It's not my thing. Okay, no problem. You don't have to try to convince them with words. Just hold the space of you as a spiritual person, of you engaged in spiritual practice, of you having spiritual experiences, of you grounded in spiritual wisdom. And slowly, 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 they'll open up. Not 100% of the time. It's not written in everyone's karmic package that it's going to happen in this lifetime. But typically, the more you try to convince people about it, sadly, the more they tend to run in the other direction because people get very defensive. And when you try to talk to them about it, they feel like, why are you trying to change me? Why are you trying to convince me? And it's much easier to just be grounded in your own truth. Be grounded in your spiritual wisdom. Invite them. Invite them to a spiritual talk. Invite them to some kirtan. Invite them to a yoga program, whatever it may be. But start simple, start easy. You don't want to necessarily invite them to a 6-hour event that's going to take place in Sanskrit that they don't understand. Start with something that they'll probably enjoy. And then slowly, 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 it'll work with them. Because in the same way that love is our true nature, which is why going through your entire life thinking that others have the cooties doesn't usually happen, because most of us do find that truth within us. that love is who we are. And even if it's not romantic love, doesn't matter. Love for anyone, love for everyone. Eventually we are going to love. We are going to connect with others in love, because that's who we are. And spirituality is who we are. And so if you as their friend can just hold that space for them, to have the awareness and the opening themselves, and just keep leaving doors open. Just keep leaving doors open. Have a nice mantra playing in the background if they're in your car or over for dinner or something. Share a story, share an insight. Oh, in satsang tonight we talked about that. Wouldn't share this question. No, I asked about you in satsang tonight, not that. But something else. Slowly, little light pieces. Oh, finally today in yoga I could touch my toes. Thought it would never happen. It happened today. Little things that just open doors. Just open doors. They don't have to walk through them, but they just are opening doors, creating spaces for them. And if people actually ask you about it, so in terms of talking about it, if somebody's actually really wanting to know and asking you, be honest, be fully honest. And be especially honest about all the pieces that you can't actually explain with words. Because you do yourself and the other person a great disservice if you try to figure out how you're going to explain it all with words. Because a lot of it can't be explained with words. A lot of it can just be felt. And if you pull yourself out of your heart and into your head in order to find the right word, you may find a really good word, but you're not going to give them the felt sense of the experience. And the word won't change them. But the felt sense of the experience of being with you as you're trying to explain it will. It's like there's that beautiful story of the great mystic Paramhans Ramakrishna, who his disciples were asking him about the different chakras and what the experience that he had was of the different chakras being opened. And he would say, okay, so, and he'd sit them down, he'd say, okay, so, when this chakra gets opened, and here's how I feel, and then the next chakra gets opened, and this is how I feel, and he'd make it through a few of them. And then he would just start to cry and go into this ecstatic trance as he was working his way up through the chakras to explain to them. And then he would just be gone for hours, and finally he'd come back and he'd start all over again, and he'd say, okay, so, working up, first chakra, I feel this, and second chakra. And every time he kept getting himself up, he would just go into these trances. And finally, after several times of this happening, he says to his disciples, with tears just pouring down his face, he says, I want to tell you, I really want to tell you, but the mother just won't let me. And I love that. Because that inability to express it when it's real actually has much more impact. His disciples were much more impacted by watching him go into ecstasy and tears streaming down his face. That was much more of a teaching than if he said, well, and my heart chakra, it feels like this, and this is the color that I tend to see, and it moves in a clockwise direction. But watching him go into ecstatic love, that was a transmission. That wasn't just a teaching. That was giving them the actual experience, not just telling them about it. And so as you try to speak to people about spirituality, don't shy away from the places and the parts that words don't come so easily, but that maybe tears do, or smiles do, or silence does. Because sometimes you'll find you're trying to describe something and all there is silence. But just the intention of describing a truth takes you into such a state of silence that there are no words. Let yourself go there. And let your friend go there with you. And you'll be able to teach them a lot more, actually, about spirituality than just by finding all the right words. Okay, Julia, and then you. Yes.
Thank you. Can you give us some tools on how to practice forgiveness in terms of injustice and betrayal, and also on how to practice forgiveness towards our own mistakes?
Good. Forgiveness of others and ourselves. What I find to be the most powerful tool for forgiveness is the awareness that without it, that which you want most in the world is out of your reach. You cannot simultaneously be holding a grudge and be living in light and love and spiritual wisdom. They cannot coexist. And so the minute that you decide that peace, that love, that awakening is more important to me than the grudge, than how that person hurt me, it slips off automatically because you realize that holding on to it is hurting yourself. And so you know that person hurt you, but now you do whatever you can do to heal as quickly as you possibly can. And so that's the greatest way to forgive. And we practice compassion. And it doesn't mean by any means that what people do is right. In many cases, what they do is wrong. To cheat is wrong, to betray is wrong, to lie is wrong, to steal is wrong, to abandon is wrong, to harm is wrong, to abuse is wrong. We know it's wrong. But we practice compassion because what we know is that those who were harming us were doing it because that was all they had. If I'm sharing pain, I'm sharing it because that's all I have. We can only share what we have. If I live in joy, I can share joy. If I live in love, I can share love. If I live in misery, that is all I can share. And so we realize that if somebody has brought pain into my life, it's because that's all they have. And in terms of ourselves, we forgive for the same reason. Number one, because not forgiving is holding us back. Number two, because we realize that at that time, like everybody else, I was doing the best that I could with the toolbox that I had at that moment in my life. And where the universe needed patience and compassion or skill from me, I didn't have it at that time. What I had was impatience and fear and anger. So I used those. We let it go. But we let it go with the clarity that I'm going to make sure my toolbox is full next time. Because there's going to be another time, another situation, when the universe wants that from me again. And I was unprepared the first time. So I acted unskillfully, hurt myself, hurt others. But I'm going to be sure to be prepared next time. If it turns out I didn't have patience last time, I'm going to cultivate it now. I didn't have understanding, I'm going to cultivate it now. I didn't have perseverance, I'm going to cultivate it now. And that's how we grow. But shame and guilt don't help us grow. They thwart our growth. So we let them go. And Ganga is the exact right place to do it. Give it to Ganga. That was Puja Swamiji's beautiful teaching to me. Instruction rather, not a teaching. It was an instruction. Just give it to Ganga. The pain, the anger, the story, give it all. Just give it to Ganga. Yes.
Sometimes despite letting go and forgiving all, some emotional blocks remain, which you get aware of when next situation happens and
Yeah.
realize the blocks are still there. How do you tackle this?
We learn. You learn. We only know where. So I can do the very best to build a house. But I'm not really going to know exactly that it's leak-proof until it rains. But then when it rains and I realize, oh, I've got a leak over there, then I'm able to go and I'm able to work with that leak. So that at least by the next time it rains, it no longer leaks. But when I see that leak, when I experience that leak, I don't take it as a failure of myself. I realize that I did the best I could. But yeah, inevitably I'm going to have missed some spots. And that's what life is about. So we keep going deeper and deeper. I have moments come sometimes in my own life where something will arise. And I'll say to myself, my God, I thought we were done. Like, I haven't seen you in so long. Wow. Okay. Guess we're not fully done yet. And that's all you can do. Like, years ago, the last time I dealt with that, I thought I had fully moved through it. And if you had asked me a week ago, I would have said, yeah, done with it. But then this situation arose and you realize, oh, I guess not quite so done yet. Another layer. Another layer to peel back. And so we just move through our lives peeling back these layers, but not feeling shameful about them, not feeling embarrassed by them, but realizing that each of them is taking us deeper and deeper into the truth of who we are. They're gifts, because they're avenues into a depth of ourself. If nothing ever triggered us, if you lived somewhere where the rain never fell, you would never learn how to be the best carpenter in the world. You could be the sloppiest carpenter in the world and it wouldn't matter. But that's not the point of life. So it's not about how can I create a world in which nobody ever triggers me, nothing ever happens that pushes my buttons, nothing ever brings up anything for me. That's like saying, forget it, I'm too lazy to learn to be a good carpenter. I'm going to move somewhere it never rains. No. Stay where you are, where it rains. But learn to be a good carpenter. Learn to patch up those holes. And that's what the rain teaches us. And so when something happens and it triggers us, and there you realize, oh yeah, there it is again. That's an avenue. It's an avenue deeper into yourself. Use it. Don't berate yourself. Don't feel shame. Don't feel guilt. Don't feel anything. I'm fascinated by it when it happens. I've got this great fascination for the workings of my own psyche. Really, and it's like, wow, that's so interesting. Okay, here we are. Hadn't expected to spend the day with anger, but here we are. You know, it's like in India we say Atiti Devo Bhava. It's like the guest is God. You are not allowed to slam your door. You didn't want to see that guy? Too bad, he's shown up on your doorstep. You've got to let him in and give him a cup of tea. Same thing, it's like, all right, wasn't planning on spending the morning with anger, but there he arrived on my doorstep. Okay, let's give him his cup of tea and hope he'll be on his way sometime soon. Right? I'm not going to roll out a futon for him. I don't want him to stay the night. But I'm also not going to scream and yell and throw a temper tantrum on the doorstep because he's shown up. Like, all right, okay, here you are. Not what I expected, not what I planned. And then you figure out, okay, what do I need to do in the future to prevent him from coming? Like, why did he show up today? What happened yesterday or last night or this morning? Due to which, suddenly, out of the blue, after such a long time, totally unexpectedly, anger showed up. What happened? And it could be something as minor as, I didn't get enough sleep. I stayed up too late. Cranky when I'm tired. Could be any one of dozens of things from the most superficial physical level. Had too much sugar. Dinner last night threw off all my blood chemistry. Woke up in a cranky mood this morning. And it could be something much deeper. But you look at it. Without shame, without judgment. With fascination. And then learning for next time, how do we not have that happen? How do we keep anger off our doorstep? Good. Are you here tomorrow?
I'm not, but I can tune in online if you want to ask the question tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. You stayed back tonight just to do this. Now I remember. Okay, so we'll end with yours. Now I remember. We had that conversation last night. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll end with you.
Sure.
Thank you for waiting patiently.
That's my pleasure. In a world where it's rampant with messages of insecurity and where we're told that there's something that we're not good enough at or something that we can be better at, many people struggle with feeling trapped by feelings of inadequacy and low self-worth, and that can be quite an addictive behaviour over time, particularly with regards to self-pity.
Yeah.
In the same token, we're told just to love ourselves and accept ourselves, which can be quite an abstract concept for somebody who already feels imprisoned by that paradigm, that mental paradigm. So I'm wondering if you could please share your insights on the ways in which somebody comes to terms with themselves as being enough as they are, but also in practicing sustainable self-love, not just self-love in a book that they read.
Yes. Good. So, two core concepts I hear. First of all, this sense of being addicted to being not good enough. That it's not just that I've got that message in my head, but that I also have developed a personality addiction to that being true. And then the second being real self-love. So let's take the second first. Self-love does not mean whatever you do is perfect. Self-love does not mean, don't tell me that that was my ego, because you know what? I'm practicing self-love and I am perfect and I don't want to hear it. Not what self-love means. Self-love does not mean, no, I am not going to look at my issues. I am not going to look at the role that I played because I am practicing self-love. And so I can't look at any of that. No. Self-love has nothing to do actually with the perfection or imperfection or skill or lack of skill in how we move through the world. It's a capital S self-love. It's, I love the truth of who I am. And that is sustained. So that when I make mistakes, instead of harboring anger at myself and not being able to forgive myself, I understand, okay, that was this ego self that was afraid, that was in desire, that was in ego, that was in my indoctrinated self. Not my true self. And so I come back to forgiveness. But self-love also includes not only the soul, spirit, consciousness, awareness. It also includes some level of this particular life drama that I'm in the midst of. And having compassion for it, the same way that we have for others. The awareness that if you read or you were told your story and the truth of it, all the details of the pain and the turbulence and whatnot, that you'd have compassion for that woman. That you'd be able to say, yeah, she's doing a really good job. And to be able to have that for yourself. So it's interesting because one comes from a place of absolute connection to the core of who you are, to that capital S self. I'm soul, spirit, consciousness, love, truth, the supreme universe. There is nothing I'm not. Love for God, love for the self. The other is actually taking a step back and looking at this very incarnation. Saying, wow, she's been through one heck of a lot. Wow, that woman is really working hard. That woman is really doing the best she can. And they're both important. Because it's important to have that love and compassion for the story of this vehicle. But it's also important to realize the truth of who you are, because that is the highest form of self-love. And the best way to practice it, the first way, the capital S self, is through meditation. Because when you meditate, you actually have that possibility of touching and experiencing that capital S self. And when you touch it, you know it. And when you know it, it is love. It's not a matter of I love that. It's a matter of just love. Like there's no longer a me and an it. There's just love. And the other piece with this particular drama is imagine it as someone else. Imagine it as someone who's come to you, sharing their story, looking for love, looking for friendship, looking for a hand to hold, a lap to sit in, shoulder to cry on. And allow your compassion and your love for that other being to flow. Because when it's us, there's all this judgment and drama. But if it were just someone who came to you, you'd be able to say, wow, sweetheart, you are doing so great. Of course you're trying. And yeah, of course you've got this pattern. And you'll get free of it, don't worry. So that same love and compassion that you'd give another, give yourself. And along with that comes holding your hand to the fire of letting go of that addiction to not being enough. And here's where it tends to come from. It could come because different places for different people, we all get it in different ways. It comes from an attachment to the one from whom we learned it. So was there someone in our life who told us, either very specifically or just through their actions, that we weren't enough? And especially if it's a parent, as children, believing that the parents are omniscient, they know everything, they're omnipotent, they're all powerful, that is essential for children. Like, we have to believe that our parents know everything and can do everything. And so whatever our parents tell us, we believe them. And as we grow, a lot of those patterns, you realize we're holding on to them addictively because it is so important to us to believe what our parent has told us. Because if I realize I'm worthy, and someone whom I really trusted, depended upon, told me I wasn't, well, it's a lot easier to go through my life feeling unworthy than it is to have to pull the rug out from underneath that whole relationship. And the truth is that you don't have to pull the rug out from underneath it. All you have to do is realize that that other person was doing the best they could at that time with the toolbox that they had and their own confusion and their own stress, that they didn't mean to mess you up for life. But so it actually doesn't mean that you have to go back and say, my God, you just have to have the fearlessness to look at it and to realize, oh my God, maybe they didn't know everything. Maybe they weren't right. Maybe they were fallible. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they didn't know anything that they were doing. Maybe it's only by God's grace that anything turned out right at all. And so we have to be prepared to let go of the attachment to the perfection of that being who told us. Also, some of us get it through loved ones. But it may simply be that the loved one didn't believe that they were worthy. And so even though they didn't necessarily give us the message that we weren't worthy, we learned that the way of thinking is, I'm not worthy enough. So if we had a parent, for example, who modeled for us all the time to themselves, you're stupid, you're horrible, you're worthless, a parent who abused themselves in some way, well, that's what was modeled for us. And then to let go of that addiction to not enoughness is on some level to say, I'm better than they are, which is something that nobody feels comfortable saying about their parents. And there's lots of shame involved in that and lots of guilt involved in that. And so we stay in that addiction because it enables us to hold off our parents as perfect in the belief that they also had and modeled for us. If we realize that what they were modeling isn't true, then it means that we've somehow gone a step beyond them. And again, that pulls the rug out from underneath that archetype of the parental perfection. And another reason we hold on to the addiction of not enoughness is it's a fantastic excuse to not have to step up to the plate of your life. It sort of allows us to not actually ever work through our stuff, not actually ever have the inner experience and growth and transformation we're supposed to have. Because we get to just keep going through the same psychological drama over and over again. And this is where, as we've been speaking the last couple of nights, that emotional work really requires fearlessness. It requires that deep dive off the deep end into, okay, what would it look like if I were enough? If this belief that I have weren't true, what does that mean? Well, God, it means my mom is wrong. Oh my God, forget it, I don't want to go there. That's too scary. But it also means, oh my God, I've wasted the last 40 years of my life. Oh my God, I don't want to go there either. That's really scary. And so it's so much easier to just keep believing I'm not enough than to deal with the possible ramifications of what it would be if that weren't true. So fearlessness.